it's just an example. Purdue losing to Fresno State is okay. We can still win the Big Ten West. But me,
Billy Napier gets fired. I'm just kidding.
hey, really the best time of the year. I will be seated watching the Red Zone for 7 hours on Sunday. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to an episode of Back here at Banter. Johnny, James, Tanner. We're back. What a weekend. October 12th, fully delivered. But we had 3 overtime games, just absolute cinema all across college football, and even NFL delivered to an extent. Tanner got up early, or if he even slept, to watch the Bears take down Jacksonville. And then, obviously, college football was amazing. Florida almost won, so at this point, that's basically like a win in the Florida
right over left.
right now. There you go, right over left. And they should have won. But I will get into that later. Here's a list of all the errors that Florida made. So I will be getting into that later. But first, we're going to start with might possibly be the game of the year, even though people thought we had the game of the year 2 weeks ago. This game was possibly better. Ohio State, Oregon. Oregon wins in just an absolute thriller. I think the field rushing is kind of overrated at this point because everyone does it. And I think, personally, if you're number 3 and you beat the number 2 team, I don't think you rush the field. That might be a hot take. Whatever, they're students. They're going to do their thing.
I like that take.
Tanner, man, we'll just start with you. I mean, what was your biggest impression from that game?
I would like to make a claim and say that I was correct. Dan Lanning outcoached Ryan Day. That was my expectation going in, and that's what happened. Absolutely shocked that Ohio State has the ball in field goal range. It's like 30, 35-yard line, 20 seconds, one timeout, and they're throwing the football. I mean, what are we doing? Like, it resulted in a penalty, which bumped them back, and then ultimately they ended up losing the game. Not going to blame Will Howard. That's not his fault. His head coach, Ryan Day, deciding to continuously throw the ball when they're in field goal. All you got to do is kick a field goal. You win the game. That was pretty stupid to me. I think Ryan Day is massively overrated. He's in trouble. If he doesn't beat Michigan, his job. If
it doesn't beat Penn State, they go to Penn State in a few weeks.
That too. I mean, his job. He's truthfully on the hot seat. I'm not going to sit here and say Dan Lanning coached his best game either. It was enough to outcoach Ryan Day. A little bit aggressive. We know Dan Lanning's going to be like that. There's a time and a place for it. I don't think against Ohio State at home is the correct time and place to go for 2 and be that aggressive. But he won the game. It worked. So shout out to the Oregon Ducks. It should be relatively smooth sailing for them the rest of the season. I mean, that was really their only one.
Friday night, T. Come on, don't be coy. They're coming to Ross A.
Is most likely going to be over at kickoff between Oregon and Purdue. But no, shout out to the Oregon Ducks. Big win for them. Ohio State has so much talent, but a terrible head coach. Oregon has so much talent and an aggressive head coach. I would rather have so much talent and an aggressive head coach than a dumb head coach, which is why I like the Ducks in the first place, and it's why I like the Ducks to close out the Big Ten by the end of the season.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the opening line of that Oregon-Purdue game on Friday is 27, and, man, it's intriguing.
I mean,
it's intriguing. Yeah, but at the same time, hey, they just played Illinois tough, but whatever. It is what it is. But anyway, this game, I totally agree with Tanner. I was wrong. I thought Ohio State was just a better team. And Dylan Gabriel was incredible. He really was. He made some incredible throws. But I'm not going to knock Will Howard either. He had an incredible game as well. Like, this was on the field one of the best games because nobody really made a ton of mistakes. Like, Ohio State had a fumble. Judkins lost the fumble there. But I totally agree with what Tanner said. This game was lost on the sidelines with guys in their headset because you can't go out there and you can't blame Will Howard for this loss because he was incredible. Dylan Gabriel was incredible. Run games for both teams was subtle enough. I mean, when you look at box scores, passing yards, rushing yards, they're basically even, right? And obviously it was a close game. Oregon wins by 1, but that was an incredible game. Excited to see where these two teams, hopefully meet at the end of the season. But who knows? I mean, you really never know because now Ohio State's in that same boat now with 1 loss, and you're like, okay, you can't make any more mistakes. Let's not sleep on them in 2 weeks playing Nebraska. Obviously they should be able to take care of Nebraska, but Nebraska isn't terrible, right? And then the week after that, they go to Penn State, and then they got Purdue. Ohio State is now in that spot with a loss, and it was going to happen to both of these teams. But I still think Ohio State's very good. I think, like Johnny has mentioned multiple times, I think they have one of the best rosters on the country. So I think they're going to be fine. But it's hard to lose a game like this. But that's why the Big Ten is great. The SEC is great because there's so many great teams at top. And so it was by far better than the Bama Georgia game. This game had my heart beating, and I don't even care who won. Obviously I wanted Ohio State to win, so my prediction on the podcast was right. But other than that, like when you have a game that's like has you at the edge of your seat and you have no ties into that game, that's when you know it's a great college football game. So it was a fantastic Saturday for sure.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, James. Just edge of your seat stuff. And I mean, there was 3 games in the night window that had you like that. You had Florida, Tennessee that was like that, and then right after that, you had LSU Ole Miss that was just like that. Just absolute cinema in the late weekend. And also with Penn State USC, which also went to overtime. And we're not going to talk about this game a lot just because we have so much to get to. Penn State loses that game the past 5 years. And to come back and win that game is absolutely massive for James Franklin and Penn State. So I just want to say that Penn State showed a grit that they have not shown since Chris Godwin and all of them were there and they won the Big Ten. What year was that, T? 2017 when they won the Big Ten and with 2 losses around then? 2016, something like that.
No. Yeah.
But I'm saying we're not going to talk about that game, but definitely want to shout out Penn State regardless. Tanner, you're right in the sense that, first of all, I think that these 2 teams could be the best 2 teams in the country. We could have just seen a national championship potential preview. Like that's how good these 2 teams are. Evan Stewart finally had his coming out party. You've been waiting, and not that he wasn't good at A&M, but and on Saturday night he showed why he was special, right? I mean, he had 8+ catches, almost 130, over 130 yards. I mean, he was money and a touchdown. Judkins for me, man. I mean, rough game. 23 yards rushing. I know he was a factor receiving, but Henderson's just better. They had the same amount of carries, and Henderson's yard per carry was, I think, almost 4 yards more than his. Like that's very substantial. That's what gets you first downs and what doesn't get you first downs. But look, as a Florida fan, if you want to say someone's a bad coach, but you're going 10-2, 11-2, 11-1 every year and making the playoffs every third year, you would 100% take it. But there's no excuses now for Ryan Day. He is the most talented roster that we've seen since 2020 Bama and 2019 LSU. And before that, you got to go back even further to see talent that he has like this on the field. And there's been multiple gaffes that he's had. For example, in the COVID year when they lost to Bama in the national championship, their defense and their defense coordinator especially were very bad that season. And he did not let go of that defense coordinator because they said, oh, they made the national championship, blah, 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 the COVID year. And then they wasted 2 years of C.J. Stroud and like 4 first-round receivers because they couldn't get a stop against Georgia, because they couldn't get a stop against Michigan. And there's just stuff like this that you don't see that's on the field that Ryan Day have had major gaffes in. And then you get to on the field. And look, I don't think he called a bad game. If you run the ball, you still kind of risk the same potential of a penalty. You get holding penalty, you still the same thing. It's yin and yang with that for me. But I think it's more on at the end of the game. You're never going to blame one player, one play. But Will Howard's got to have more awareness than that. Look, Nico Emiliava did that the other day against Arkansas. He's a redshirt freshman. Will Howard's been in college for like 18 years. You just got to know time, and it's just like in basketball. You hear it all the time. You got to know time and score. You got to know what's going on. But still, I mean, none of that takes away just from what a great game that it was. Again, Dylan Gabriel was great. Oregon's defense did just enough. Ohio State's defense, a little bit of a disappointment for me. Denzel Burke, they just picked on him a lot, and he was supposed to be a first-round corner or projected wise, and I mean, he did not play well. So I think these 2 teams, I predicted in the preseason that Oregon would beat them, and then Ohio State would beat them again in the Big Ten championship. So I'm hoping we get that rematch simply because, I mean, how many times you want to see the 2 best teams in the country play as many times as possible. So yeah, that was my take from it.
Yeah, I would like to give a quick shout out to Tin Roof on North Clark Street in Chicago, Illinois. I have watched 2 great college football finishes inside of that place. First, it was NIU Notre Dame, and now I watched Oregon and Ohio State in Tin Roof. So that place is awesome. Great place to sit down and watch a college football game.
Dude, I thought I was over that. All right, come on, man. Like we don't gotta do it. All right.
Notre Dame covered against Stanford. Big one.
Ryan Leonard's back. Put him in the Heisman talk.
Oh, shut up. So bad. Notre Dame literally plays Benedictine schedule.
They have two. They no, okay, we're not
Do you
doing
know
this.
if Florida and Notre Dame play each other in like 2030 or 2029?
We're
I
going.
saw that the other day.
You want to go? You want to go?
Absolutely. I will
Andy,
be.
you want to go too? You want to be like a
If
non
DJ Lagway's still there, I'm there.
He probably will be.
Whoa.
I mean, guys are about to get their eighth year. What's his name from Utah is about to get
Cam
their
Rising. Yeah.
Like,
DJ Lightweight is going to be out of here in 3. So we're not going to have that. But speaking of Florida, I wanted to get to them really quick because, obviously, big point on the podcast. And look, what I'm about to say has nothing to do with Billy Napier, the human being. I've talked about before. I think Billy Napier is an outstanding human. He's just not a very good football coach. And, that's fine, but that's not good enough at the University of Florida, right? And I see all over Twitter. Twitter's such an interesting place. And saying that Florida's fan base is toxic and it's not a winning environment. You can't win there. I will say this to the Florida players. They came out and played their butts off. I mean, whatever happened to that defense during the bye week, I will give Napier credit there. They came out and looked completely different. If you'd have told me that Florida's defense line had 3 sacks and 8 tackles for loss in the game against Tennessee, first of all, I would have thought I was dreaming because they couldn't even get pressure against Samford consistently. So, I mean, that is a benefit. But Florida is one of only 4 or 5 schools in the country that has sold out 5+ home games a season for the last 3 years. That's the entire Napier era. Even after they got blown out against Miami, Florida sold out the swamp against Samford the next week. So I see that a lot. Just that narrative just is not true. They just demand excellence, and I think that is a fair demand if you just look at the past 30 years, 35 years of Florida football. But I don't know if a lot of you guys watched this game because it was on during a lot of the other games. So just a few of the things that Florida did during the game. So this score was 3-0 at halftime. Florida had 3 red zone possessions in the first half. They did not score. They got down to the 1-yard line and ran a QB sneak with Graham Mertz, which they've done 6 times before. And Graham Mertz is a 6-year senior, and he got stripped at the 1-yard line on first down. Fumble, Tennessee ball. Right after that, Florida gets an interception, and Sharif Denson, shout out to him, he had a great game. Florida lines up to kick a field goal. That field goal would have been probably pretty big at the end of the game, right? When you need those 3 points. Florida has 12 men on the field. How many times did that happen last year? Too many to count. They have a freaking special teams mat that they bring to games to line up people to go into the field, and you still have 12 people on the field. It just blows my mind. And then the one that I've seen, and the one that's been defended more, was before that when DJ Lagway is 240 pounds. Just put go to your head. Montrell Johnson, who was running crazy all game, gets down. The chain has links. So the people that don't know, first downs are measured by 2 chains, probably by 2 old white men, and the chains are about this big, and they go out and they go. Florida was short on their own 18-yard line by one of those chain links. Do you know what they do? They don't line up under center. They do a veer option, which means Eugene Wilson was coming across the formation, and DJ Lagway was reading one of the defenders from the shotgun on 4th and half an inch. And they give it to Eugene Wilson, and shout out to the Tennessee guy. He made a heck of a play. He didn't get it. But you need an inch. Run a QB sneak. Okay. And then before that, then you go past that. Florida throws a touchdown. They're up 10-0. Mertz tears the ACL. He's done for the year. And all the people that have been clamoring for Lagway, I think right now Graham Mertz is a better quarterback than DJ Lagway. I've said this on this podcast, and I will continue to say that. He gives you the best chance to win right now, in my opinion. Lagway comes in. Look, this is no fault to him. I think Lagway is going to be a first-round pick in 2 years. He has that kind of potential, whether it's at Florida or if he transfers. He was the lowest-rated player by PFF on Florida's team. And Florida overcomes all that, and Lagway makes a special play to throw it in the end zone. That's really. There's only 5 quarterbacks that can make that play in college right now, and Lagway is one of them. So those are the pros of having him out there. And then you go to overtime, and Billy Napier's play calling the entire second half is just mind-boggling. It's anytime it's 3rd and 7 or longer, you just know a screen's coming. It is unbelievable. And then it's that, and then you go to overtime, and you run the ball, you lose 2 yards. You throw a screen, you lose another 2 yards, and then you're incomplete pass, and you kick and miss a field goal, the game's over. Billy Napier has not beat 3 Power 4 teams in a row in his 3 years at Florida. Not 3 in a row. He has a losing record against Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas. He has a losing record against his rivals. He has almost a losing record at home in the Swamp. His winning percentage at the University of Florida is below 50%. This is a team that is a top 15 talent roster in all of college football, and you are 3-3. Florida outplayed Tennessee. Florida has more talent than Tennessee. If you watch the game, it's pretty evident to see that. And they lost because Billy Napier is incompetent at coaching right now, and it sucks. And they're going to fire him, and then they're probably going to hire Lane Kiffin. And I have you guys know my doubts on Lane Kiffin. I think he's another Dan Mullen. Yeah, which is an insane pull from James. But that went a little bit longer than I thought, than I wanted. But who knows? Florida's probably going to lose to Kentucky on Saturday. Then we probably won't talk about it in the rest of the year. But I'm eager to see your guys' reaction to that. Our opening clip on the podcast is saying that Tanner's saying Billy Napier is going to get fired for almost 100 episodes now. But I was eager to see your guys' response on that.
Yeah, I would say that if I were, just looking at it from the outside looking in, from the Florida Gator perspective, from the Florida fan perspective, I think that the best case scenario at this point the rest of the season is definitely Lagway playing it out. And I'm not going to say, it's not good. I feel bad for Graham Mertz. That injury sucks for him. I feel bad for the kid. But Lagway getting to play the rest of the season is the best case scenario. Is he going to do well? I don't know. It doesn't really matter because he just needs reps. He just needs to learn. He needs to learn how to play in the SEC, learn how to see defenses, all that kind of stuff. And now he's going to get that the rest of the year. I think that's great for Florida. Is he going to stay at Florida when Napier gets fired? Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Does a Texas A&M, does someone like that from his home state come and poach him? I don't know. We'll see. But the fact that he's going to be out there playing, I think gives them a better chance to stay at Florida. And the season's not lost. They have a very tough schedule, don't get me wrong, but 6 to 7 wins is to me
very realistic.
Consider that a good season for Florida considering their schedule and what they had to face. So it's still in play. Is it going to happen? I don't know, but I still think that there's a lot to play for the Gators moving forward this season.
Yeah, quick, Tanner, to your point, I think DJ Lagway playing elevates Florida's ceiling dramatically. For example, I think Florida has a better chance of beating Georgia or Texas with DJ Lagway in the game more than Graham Mertz because he can make those special downfield plays that only, again, 4 or 5 people in college football can make. So, there is benefit to that aspect. But, I just think Billy Napier's incompetence as a head coach just limits Florida's ceiling, considerably.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I'm kind of excited to see because now we get to see the Lagway show, right? It's going to be what it is, right? It's now Florida has to sell Lagway on staying because that's the other truth that has to happen, whether they keep Napier or not, which they're probably not. No matter what happens, they're probably not going to keep him, whether he gets fired during the season or after the season. This is going to be Billy Napier's last season, right?
Yeah, unless you go run the table or something, do something.
Right. So exactly, but it's probably not going to happen. But Lagway's Florida's got to find a way to keep Lagway there. So that's Florida's next goal besides whoever's next on the schedule. But on the other side, Tennessee coming off of a terrible loss, right? Tanner and I said it. Oh, dude, you're going to Rocky Top at night. We've seen last year, or was it 2 years ago? It was 2 years ago when Tennessee played Alabama, right? Yeah. And it's one of the most electric atmospheres in sports. Most rated that game as the loudest environment they've ever been. Over 100,000 people. And you have a great environment again. And Tennessee's coming off a loss. You're like, yeah, Tennessee's going to roll here. And I blame that game on coaching again because Tennessee, and I watched most of that game, Johnny, because I didn't realize it was going to be a game. And then I look at the end of the first quarter and I'm like, okay, let me turn it on. And Tennessee would run the ball on first and second down almost every time, it felt like. And then Nico would throw a deep shot on third down. And that is not a productive way to play football. I'm so tired of everything needs to be, it's 3rd and 7, we have to throw a 25-yard, bomb. It doesn't have to happen. I miss the simplicity of football sometimes. And some coaches have it and some coaches don't. And the coaches that don't lose games like a Tennessee, Florida. And no offense, Johnny, but that can't happen. That game should not go into overtime. That game should not be that close, especially
Florida should have won by 20 points. That's the type of gap that Billy Napier cost. It's insane. And James, to your point on them running it so much, Nico is not a good quarterback right now. He just isn't. you can see the arm talent because when the ball leaves his hand, it looks different. But his accuracy is wishy-washy at best, and he missed 2 deep balls.
I agree.
Simple as that. He missed 2 touchdowns, and then his intermediate stuff was all over the place. He threw an atrocious interception at the end of the second quarter. The fumble on the first drive was on him as well. Like, he's 19 years old, 20 years old. I'm gonna cut him some slack, but I mean, we can just get in, since we're on Tennessee, we can just get into their game against Alabama this week. And I'll be quick here. Like, no one struggled more in the last 2 weeks, even more than Tennessee, than Alabama has. Alabama has looked like a shell of themselves. People are saying that Kalen DeBoer must have the worst halftime speech during the Georgia game because they just have been atrocious since then. With that being said, I think Bama is going to go into Neyland. I think they're going to roll Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee's a good football team. I think Tennessee was wildly overrated from beating Chattanooga in NC State. If you look at Tennessee, once they've gotten to conference play, they've scored 25 points, 19 points, and 17 points. Guess what? Alabama's defense is better than Arkansas's and Florida's. And if Nico struggled against them two, then he's going to really struggle against Bama's defense. And I think Jalen Milroe is the best player on the field in that game. And I just think Bama has too many athletes. And look, Tennessee still has major questions in their secondary. Their front's so good that it hides a lot of it. But I think Alabama's offensive line might be one of the best offensive lines in the country. Then I think Alabama's offensive line really, like, they're not going to completely shut down Tennessee's D-line, but they're going to really limit it enough that we're going to see the vulnerabilities in Tennessee's secondary. So I got Alabama going to Neyland and winning by 10+.
Yeah, John, I'm going to agree with you. A lot of the same reasons you mentioned. That Tennessee D-line is definitely the strength of that team, and they're going to run into the best offensive line in the country. Alabama's offensive line is 5 dudes who are going to play in the NFL. There's no other way to put it. And Jalen Milroe is a dude who's probably going to play in the NFL. And same with all their receivers, and same with all their running backs. Their defense, a little bit skeptical on for Bama. Just the way they've handled Vandy in South Carolina the last couple weeks is scary. But I have that sense, I have that gut feeling that Bama absolutely rolls. They wake up and they just roll Tennessee. I think they blow them out. I don't think it's a contest in the second half. I think Nico's too young of a quarterback to win a game against Bama. Tennessee's got talent, yes, they're good, but Bama's got more talent. And Josh Heupel, he's a good coach. I'm not going to say he's coached his best football the last couple weeks, but he is still a very good coach. And the way that he plays could make this an interesting game. They play fast. They're going to spread you out. They're going to throw the ball around. They're going to spread the linebackers out, run the ball up the middle. They have a good running back. It could be an interesting game, but Bama just has the better athletes. They have the athletes that can kind of cover an offense like that and just lock down an offense like Tennessee's. It's going to spread it out. So I like Bama a lot in this matchup. I think they roll the Volunteers.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm favoring Bama. Obviously I was big on Tennessee, going into the season and whatnot. But when I look at what Alabama's weaknesses are and what I think Tennessee's strong at, I think this game has a chance of being good because of Tanner's points exactly. I think Tennessee has an ability to just air it out, and I think that is where Bama could struggle. I've been saying it, their secondary is not good. You watch the end of that South Carolina game, that was clear. So Tennessee's only chance at winning this game is Nico needs to somehow be the quarterback that he was against Chattanooga against the Tide, right? And it's a weird statement to say, but Nico has to be exceptional because he's going to have an opportunity to hit those deep throws against Alabama. I'm firm on that. And if he hits a few of them, next thing you know, this is a ball game. And like Tanner said, Dylan Sampson's a hell of a running back, and he can definitely keep you in a lot of games. They're not just a pass-heavy offense. Like they can do it on both sides. Nico's going to have a big game, a big comeback game against Bama because I think Bama's one thing that they're really struggling on is their defense right now. It's not all clicking. It's not all gelling. Multiple times in that South Carolina games, there was just missed coverages, linebackers, running into their corners, and it's like, what's going on here? You're the University of Alabama. Like this doesn't happen. And obviously it's new. Things are going to happen. They're too well coached to do that. But it's a huge game. It's one that we've been circling on the schedule for a while. Heck, it's one you've been circling on the schedule for 2 years now, ever since Tennessee, took care of Bama. It's a big get back game for Bama. But here's the thing: Nico's got a chance to really just continue to solidify himself as a future of Tennessee, quarterback play. And I really think they're going to have an opportunity to air it out against Alabama secondary. I think it's the only way they keep it close. I hope it's a close game. I hope it's one of those electric finishes like we had last week and what we had 2 years ago with this game. And I think the only way that happens is Nico airs it out. So,
yeah, and I got one quick point here to make on Coach DeBoer coming over from Washington. He had the most talented team in the Pac-12 last year, at least in my opinion. That Washington team was really, really good. And they still found themselves in close games versus teams that weren't good, not even close to their level. And it's one of those things. I just think the way he plays, the way he runs his offense, the way he runs his defense, for whatever reason, he finds himself in a lot of close games, even though he's the more talented team. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on with Coach DeBoer at Bama, because that Washington team should have blown out those Arizonas, those Arizona States, all those teams last year, and they didn't. They still made the college football playoff, made the national championship game. They still won those games, but there's some games where it's a little bit too close, and I'm just going to keep an eye on that with Coach DeBoer a little bit.
Yeah, that's very fair. And James, you bring up the point of the game. It's Bama secondary versus Nico. If you can hit a few of those deep shots that he missed against Florida, it changed everything. All right, we're going to preview one more game. The reason why we're previewing games in this episode is because we have an NBA guest coming on in our next episode. NBA season starts Tuesday,
Yep.
because the Jazz play Wednesday, and I'll be in attendance.
Fire. Let's go.
But with that being said, another game of the year potential here. Georgia goes to Texas. And look, in the preseason, I had Georgia losing to Alabama and losing to Texas, but still making the playoff and making a run. With that being said, I picked them to beat Alabama, and I'm going to pick them to beat Texas. I think Georgia's going to go into Texas, into Austin, and win, simply because Texas has not been tested yet this season. Yes, they went to Michigan. Michigan, I don't know what you want to call their quarterback situation. I'll call it not good. Their quarterback situation is not good. Their defense isn't as good as last year. And so I don't think they got tested in that game. And since then, they've played the powerhouses like Mississippi State and UL Monroe and Oklahoma without their 5 best receivers. And you can call it a backup quarterback, but Jackson Arnold's so bad that he might be the starter. But without a guy that can throw the ball 15-plus yards. Carson Beck just threw a career high in passing yards last game. It was against Mississippi State. You can say whatever you want. I have major questions about Georgia's defense right now. They just gave up 31 to Mississippi State. I don't know what is going on with that right now. I have always concerns about their depth on their defensive line coming into the season, but they're not playing up to the standard of Georgia football right now. With all that being said, somehow I think Alabama goes into Texas, goes into Austin, and finds a way, or Georgia goes into Austin and finds a way to win. But I'll tell you what, Texas has the number 1 defense in the country, and that isn't because they haven't played anyone. Texas defense is beyond legit. They got first-rounders all over their D-line. They got a 5-star freshman that's going to be a stud in the coming years. He's already a stud now. Their secondary is plenty good enough. Quinn Ewers was really bad in the first quarter against Oklahoma, like really bad, like overthrowing guys by 10 yards over the head for interceptions. He's settled in a little bit. I'm interested to see what he's going to be like against the best defense, or Georgia, Michigan, whatever, one of the best defenses he's seen since being out for over 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. So we'll see. If I was a betting man, I would not bet money on this game because I could easily see Texas winning by 17 plus. But with that being said, look, Texas hasn't been tested yet. I don't think there's an elite team in college football this year. And I think Georgia is going to go in there and show that.
Yeah, John, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. That was my exact reasoning there. I was gonna say Texas has not played anyone. I don't view that Michigan game as a tough matchup for them. Georgia had that game at Bama, obviously, where they were tested, and I think how that game went in Bama, not in terms of like Georgia getting down a lot, but just in terms of the scoring, how high scoring it was. That's kind of what I'm expecting in Texas this weekend between these two teams. I think it's going to be very high scoring. And the difference is Georgia's played in a game like that on the road already in a tougher environment, in my opinion, than what they're going to get in Austin. Excuse me. Sorry. But I think Georgia, their ability to hit on the deep shots with Carson Beck is something we haven't seen out of Georgia in a long time. Really, I mean, at least from what I can remember. And I think that's the difference in this game because Texas has a very good defense. But when you play Georgia and you're in a tight game and you're the Texas defense and you need to stop, what are you going to do? Are you going to go out there and send the house and give up a ball over the top? Or are you going to sit back in a zone and let Georgia run the ball and take 5-yard checkdowns all day long? Like, I think the way that Texas is going to have to play they're going to have to play a hell of a defensive game to stop this Georgia offense, and they haven't been tested like that. They just have not been tested like that at all. I think Georgia's offense is going to be the reason they go into Austin and they get a big win. I don't see Georgia dropping 2 SEC games before the end of October. That's just not going to happen. Not at all. Not under Kirby Smart. So give me the Bulldogs. I still think Texas can win the national championship, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's crazy that, Georgia's in this spot now that they could lose 2, SEC games after winning 42 straight, 42 straight regular season games. Like, that's absurd. But this is the new realignment of just the SEC got better, right? Like, that's just.
Well, they're not playing the SEC East anymore. They're not playing freaking Vanderbilt.
Correct. Well,
I shouldn't say Vanderbilt anymore.
You can't even say Vandy anymore, whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I saw the worst take, and I don't post on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw it.
I saw you post.
I never post on Twitter because I think it's like it's either like you're kind of dumb for like responding to people, and someone put what's his name from Vandy in the top 5 Heisman talk, and it's like what are you talking about? So I'm not even going to entertain that anymore. He got enough attention out of me on Twitter. But I'll tell you this: Texas is going to win this game. Texas is going to win this game simply because of the fact that Georgia's defense is awful. And I'm saying awful because I'm talking about the University of Georgia, right? And you look at this, like, they played Kentucky. They won by 1, okay? Like, I understand their offense has plenty of firepower, but I don't think they've put a game together yet. And so that does concern me picking Texas because you figure they're due to click, but they haven't clicked yet. And so it's like, for me, their offense and defense have not played well together yet, and that concerns me picking Texas. But I picked Texas because of Georgia's inability to play defense right now. I mean, Mississippi State, a 1-5 team, one of the worst teams in the SEC, put up 31 on their head, and they won 41-31. Like, if you would have told me that was going to be the final in that game, I would have laughed at you. I would have thought you were hilarious, and I would have just disregarded the entire statement. But Texas, they just haven't faltered. Like, I understand Oklahoma's not a very good team. The fact that Oklahoma was still ranked going into that game was criminal.
Yeah.
I think Vegas lost a lot of money on that game if I had to be a smart guy. But like, Texas is just the better team in my eyes right now. I think clearly the best team in the country right now. And I think they take care of Georgia. And it's not anything against Georgia's offense. It's simply because I think Texas is going to have a feast day on Georgia's defense. And I think if it's a high-scoring game, I think that favors Georgia. And so I don't see that being the case. So we'll see. I could be wrong. My predictions usually were wrong. I mean,
James, no, drop down. Double down. It's not going to be wrong. I love your reason.
I'm horns up for sure. But
no, it's like this.
No, that's the Huskies. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. All right. We're horns up. All right. So I like Texas here. I think they're going to just going to showcase that Georgia's defense is not the defense that we've seen in the last 3 years. So
I will say Georgia with 2 losses, if they run the table, I still think they're going to get in the playoff because we didn't think about it at the time. How big is that win against Clemson in week 1? How good does that win look now?
Huge.
You go there. It's just something to think about as you continue to go on. Like you said, Tanner, who would have thought Georgia has 2 SEC losses before October's over?
Yep.
Before Halloween.
I think that another reason I picked Georgia in this game is I just think they're going to be the hungrier football team in this one. I know Texas is going to be fired up for this. This is kind of like their welcome to the SEC moment. But, I mean, Georgia kind of needs this game. I mean, they don't need it, but, like, they need it more than Texas. So give me Georgia.
We haven't seen a big game like this in Texas in a long time because you think, in the Big 12, Oklahoma dominated the Big 12 forever. And when they did it, it's like, Oklahoma State and you go, Baylor made a run. But, when those teams came to Texas, it's not Georgia coming. It's not that kind of program. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Yeah, there you go, West Virginia. When Will Greer dropped a dime to David Sills or whatever his name is. So we're doing something different now. James has a top 10 in college football for us. And James, do you have a share? If you hover your thing over it, can you share your screen?
Think so. Let's see.
Look at that.
Man.
Come on, look at that graphic. Are you kidding me?
Man.
That is slick. Come
That's
on.
amazing. That's what I did at work today. So shout out to Illinois College, man.
That is freaking electric. I love that. That was way better than I thought it was going to come
I
out
can't
when
see
you
you
said.
guys. Can you guys see me?
I can see you.
I can
All right,
see you.
man.
Yeah.
That's all right. We can see
There
it.
you go. All right. So my top 10, it's pretty straightforward. Honorable mention, obviously, we're going to put Notre Dame on there. Big win last week against Stanford. Another honorable mention, I have Iowa State actually falling outside the top 10 simply because I like BYU over them. I think BYU is the most underrated team in the country. They absolutely took care of Kansas State. Big one you can say this week. I think they got Oklahoma State, but I think BYU they have to be in front of Iowa State simply because Iowa State they beat Iowa by 1, but like it's Iowa. You never know what you're going to get. I like the Cougars there. At 9, I have Miami. They're lower than I think the AP poll. I think AP poll has them pretty high.
I think
But
that was 6.
they just look like a team that is just, again, not clicking. And this is my top 10. This is what I think is not. I'm not saying this is right. Obviously, I have 2 6-0 teams. Real low, whatever. It is what it is. I just think Miami in the ACC is not the better team, not the best team in the ACC, and that's why we get to number 8. Clemson's back. Like, Clemson's one loss to Georgia. Like, we kind of basically marked off Clemson after that game, I feel like. And they've just kind of just emerged. They're back. They're an incredible team to watch. Obviously, incredibly coached. I think it's a tough place to play, and I think they're by far my pick to win the ACC this year. So we'll see how that transpires and continues. 7, 6, and 5. We've got 3 SEC teams. Obviously, I picked LSU to beat Ole Miss. Huge win. We obviously didn't talk about that, but a huge game. I don't think LSU ever led in that game until overtime. So pretty incredible. Obviously, Death Valley seemed like it was unreal. The videos all over my social media. It's like, this is why you come to LSU. So yeah, I have Bama at 7, Georgia 5, LSU at 6. Obviously, we just talked about those 2 teams. I put Penn State at 4 behind Ohio State simply because I think Ohio State is still a team that can win a national championship. And it's crazy to say this, but I don't think Penn State can win a national championship at 6-0. Like you mentioned earlier, Penn State doesn't win this game like they did, last week against USC. But let's not act like USC was just this unreal team. Like, it was a good win, great win. But obviously, when you look at the odds, whatever the record was against when you travel 2 time zones, but like, it was still USC, a solid USC team, but it wasn't this world beater win. And Ohio State lost by 1 in Eugene. So I give Ohio State the favor there. So Penn State 4, Ohio State 3, and then Texas and Oregon, man, they're clearly the 2 best teams in the country right now. So for right now, I got Texas on top. But obviously, this could all change. I mean, you're looking at several matchups in this list. Tennessee's just off this list for me, right under Notre Dame. So this list can be completely different next week, depending on what happens in these predictions. But that's the top 10 that's Keck's top 10.
Yeah, I really like it. I like that you put Clemson over Miami. I like that you didn't put too much stock into that. I agree with that right now. I think Miami's fairly overrated. They love overrating teams that beat Florida. I don't know why. That's Miami's really only big win of note. I would have A&M also, maybe not mentioned, but in that same tier as Tennessee. I love that you didn't drop Ohio State. You shouldn't be penalized for going to maybe the best team in the hardest place to play in the country and losing a 1-point game. I don't think LSU is the number 6 team in the country, and I think that they go to Arkansas this week and then to A&M. I think there's a real chance they go 0-2 in that stretch, and we'll see. Like, a huge win for LSU, regardless. But I think if they were to play again, I would pick Ole Miss again, just for things like that. So same with it's like so. That's an interesting thing about ratings. But like, if BYU and Ole Miss play right now on a neutral field, who'd you guys pick?
Ole Miss.
Yeah, so that's a tough thing about ratings, because does BYU deserve to be ranked top 10 based off their season? Yes, but is Ole Miss, for example, or Texas A&M a better football team? Yes, but James, I think that this was a very strong performance for your first one.
Yeah,
on, baby.
I would agree. I like your top 10 a lot. I personally would have A&M ahead of Iowa State in that honorable mention.
Yeah.
I know it's not the biggest deal because it is an honorable mention. I think Clemson and Miami should be higher. I value that Clemson lost to Georgia. That's not a bad loss at all. I think Clemson should be right behind Georgia ahead of LSU. And I think Miami undefeated, despite some close games, they still are undefeated. They still have maybe the Heisman on their team. I think Miami should be valued a little higher. But other than that, I like your top 10 a lot.
Yeah,
It was hard. It was really hard for me, that 5 through 9, really. I mean, truthfully, just because you kind of knew your top 4, but then after that, like I'm not gonna lie, I was looking at LSU at 6 and like, okay, I can't really put them at 6, but I've kept them above these other teams just because of their impressive win.
Yeah,
And
no, fair.
it is what it is. And their only loss was week 1 against at the time we thought a USC team that was a contender, right? So.
I don't hate it. I think LSU is closer to 10 than 5. Yes.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. You're just you're just picking things
It's
out.
my first time. It's my first time, man.
James, I think you did a hell of a job. I mean, this is one of the best things Backyard Banter has done in a minute. This was awesome.
That.
All right. With that being said, we're gonna hop over to NFL real quick. And quickly before you guys get into the Bears, and Tanner's prediction came true. They beat the Jags and they got flexed into the primetime window on CBS against Washington. I guess maybe we can just talk about the Bears first. I do want to say this: the Bears looked really good in London against Jacksonville, but I personally need to see them do it against a competent team to really get me to believe. Like, even if they go out and beat Washington, I think Washington's defense is really bad, so that won't swayed me. They're going to need to go beat the Lions. They're going to need to go beat this is the divisional games that's really going to sell me on the Bears. If I'm not even a Bears fan, if you told me the Bears are going to be 4-2 going into the bye, you would take that 100 times out of 100. But I just, for me to firmly believe that the Bears can be a playoff team, but not only be a playoff team, but win a game in the playoffs, I'm going to need them. I'm going to need to see them do it against a team that's a playoff team instead of beating who have they beat? Jacksonville and Tennessee and whoever else. Carolina. I forgot about that one. And the Rams without all their players. But that's just me personally. James, don't give me that face. You're the most pessimistic Bears fan. When it was 38-16 and Jacksonville had the ball, James probably like, God, they're going to come back. I can't.
So Kyra and I were driving down to St. Louis, and I made her drive so I can watch it. And she's like, "They're up by 20." I'm like,
"Doesn't matter."
The Bears. I'm watching the rest of this game. Like, as soon as once Trevor Lawrence leaves the field, I will know that the Bears have won the football game.
Doesn't matter. He's not. He hasn't been on. He hasn't been on anything recently. Anyway,
he's like not even a top 30 quarterback in the NFL right now. I mean, what a terrible take I have.
Well, they just gave him $275 million. So
my podcasting career should have ended the day I said that Trevor Lawrence was
James, that's okay. It's okay. I mean, Tanner, what do you think, man?
Again, glad to see us dominate opponent that's nowhere close to being as good as us.
Yeah. Do you agree with my take?
Yeah, no, 100%. I gotta say, I'm very optimistic. Like, I'm pretty confident the Bears are going to end up performing well in this division. But I would agree with you, for them to warrant more respect from outsiders outside of Bears fans, they're going to have to beat some of those teams, which I'm confident they will end up doing. But very, very glad to see Keenan Allen get going. I think that was my prediction, was that he was going to get going. He did. We've now seen what this offense looks like when everybody gets going, when everybody is getting the ball and making plays. It's very scary. This offense is very, very scary. Offensive line is better. Very comfortable watching Caleb Williams. It's not like years past when we have a quarterback drop back to throw, and every time he throws, you just hold your breath. When Caleb throws, you're like actually smiling. You're like, oh my goodness, what's about to happen? And typically it ends up being pretty good. So that's good to see. I don't want to talk about it too much. They took care of business. That's what they're supposed to do. I think this is a playoff team. I think this is a top 10 team in the NFL. I don't know if we're getting into power rankings later, but
we will. We'll see.
We might see them in there. We'll see what it's like. But their biggest problem is by far the division they play in. And I'm still not scared to be in this NFC North division. I think it's going to prepare them for the playoffs. I think they're going to be in the playoffs. And I think if they can compete in the NFC North, they can compete with anybody in the NFL.
Yeah, man. And you know what? We do deserve to talk about the Bears because only Bears fans know what Tanner said 42 seconds ago was the realest statement that I've ever heard in my entire life. That the last 3 years, we do hold our breath every time the football is thrown. It is the truth. When the camera has to pan a certain way to see where the ball goes, it's the most nervous thing a Bears fan's ever experienced because most of the time it's a good chance it gets picked off. So, to Tanner's point, that was the greatest thing I think you've ever said in your entire life. So,
Wow.
hats off to you. And you've said some great things. So, I love you for that.
Thank you.
The Chicago Bears, man, they're so good. I'm so happy about it. It makes me smile.
3 weeks ago, you said they sucked, and they got to trade everything. I don't want to hear it from you.
No, because I will tell you this, and George McCaskey, if you're listening to this, Tanner and I, we are both two diehard Bears fans that will take a fraction of what you pay your analyst, and we can do it for you. Because Tanner said that Keenan Allen would get going. I said Cole Kmet would get going. Oh, my God, what do you know? They both scored 2 touchdowns. So,
amazing.
Granted, a lot of my take is because Cole Kmet's a Notre Dame guy, whatever. But I'm firm on it. Tight end is a huge position, especially for a rookie quarterback. And Cole Kmet is a darn good tight end. I mean, one of the most underrated tight ends in football. I will firmly say that. And so I love that Caleb got him going. I think a lot of what Cole Kmet was able to do was a lot of just his own. I mean, his first touchdown he scored, that was him, right? He broke a tackle, dove from like the 6-yard line because he's huge, right? So the Bears are an inspiring team, right? The defense is still unreal. It's unreal, dude. I mean, it's so fun to watch. And again, we'll say it. We'll keep saying it. Swift is a Backyard Banter subscriber, man. Because, and you know what? The offensive line, let's give it some credit to the offensive line. It's looking better. So, again, the only negative that we have right now is the fact that we play in the greatest division that we've ever seen in football. It's so, and you can't say, oh my God, the Packers are in last place and they have the 4th.
Yeah, but we've ever seen.
Obviously it's crazy stuff.
Best division of football right now, yes.
Oh, undoubtedly. But here's the thing. When I look at this division and I think of playing the Lions twice, I think there's no chance in hell we could beat the Lions twice. I think the Lions are very good. We'll see how obviously a huge loss for Aiden Hutchinson and whatnot, but we'll see the Lions. When I look at the Packers, I think it's a team that we can beat twice, right? When I look at the Vikings, I think it's a team we can beat twice. The only team in this division that I don't think we can beat twice is Detroit. And I don't know if that's crazy or not. I think the Packers are by far the easiest opponent for the Bears. Obviously, I say that because I absolutely hate Green Bay. So we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But this is the thing. The Bears, they had the schedule. We knew the schedule was going to be light. We just knew they had to put it together and they would be in this position. We knew 6 weeks in, the Bears had a great chance of being 4-2. Heck, we could be 5-1. We could be 5-1. So 4-2, you got to be happy. You got a big game, obviously after the bye, and then you get into the gauntlet of the schedule, the stuff we were scared about. The fact that we have all of our divisional games, in basically November. It's really annoying how that happens, but it is what it is. But if you're a Bears fan, you have to be excited because, like Tanner said, you can sit there watching a game and Caleb's, I see it all over social media. He's looking left, he's looking middle, he's looking right, he's going back left. That is how you play quarterback in the NFL. I've never played quarterback once in my life, but I can tell you that's probably how you do it, right? That's how you do it. So he looks comfortable. He looks excited. Bears fans, get on your feet, man. We got ourselves a team. Come on.
Here, and quick closing point here. I agree with all the things you said. While I firmly believe Matt Eberflus is by far the worst head coach in this division, what makes it interesting is you have Matt LaFleur, an offensive genius. You have Dan Campbell, who looks like an offensive genius. And you have, O'Connell there in Minnesota? Yeah. Am I saying that correctly? O'Connell, who's an offensive head coach. Matt Eberflus is a defensive head coach. And that's what I really like about the Bears stacking up against the rest of the NFC North is I really trust the Bears on the defensive side of the ball. And now that the offense is starting to click a little bit, it's starting to look pretty dangerous because we have a really good defense with, although he's a terrible head coach, a really good defensive play caller. Matty Eberflus can call a defensive game. I trust him 100%
Yeah.
in being able to call a game on the defensive end of the ball. So that's why I like the Bears in the NFC North moving on into the later stage of the season, because he's going to be able to shut down some of these offenses. Is he gonna absolutely lock them up, hold them to 0 points? No, but they're going to hold them to 17, 20 points, and the Bears are going to have a chance to win those games. And I'm really excited for the rest of the season. I'm trying to calm down. We got a bye week. We have plenty of rest until we play the Commanders, but I just think the dynamic of the division is going to be fun to watch.
Bear down.
We'll see. I think the Bears go 500 in the division. They'll make the playoffs. So just kind
That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do.
That's what you got to do. But real quick, I want to talk about the Bucs. Big win for Tampa for a variety of reasons. Like, Tampa was in New Orleans since Tuesday, staying in 3 different hotels because of the hurricane. And just for the community, the Tampa Bay area, all of Florida in that area, look, it means a lot to the community that Tampa was able to not only play, and for the people, like, for example, my family didn't get power back till last night. So there's a bunch of people all over the area that didn't have power, didn't watch it. But the people that could watch it, it's silly that sports can really just take your mind off something for 3 hours. And that was, what Tampa was able to do, and what the Tampa area has been through the last 17 days with 2 hurricanes. And I told you guys, I know 15 people that have lost everything. Their houses are destroyed. And those are just people I know. You see the horror videos that you see on, social media and stuff like that. And, for a team to just go out there and that just have such a good feel for the city, and they say it in all the post-game interviews, like, we did this for the city. Like, this is what they did. And Tanner, you agree with me. I think the Bucs are good enough to win a Super Bowl. And I might be crazy, but what Baker is doing right now, he leads the NFL in passing touchdowns. He has 15. Next closest has 12. Top 5 in passer rating. He had 3 picks against New Orleans. Look, 2 of them were tipped up in the air because McMillan, who's our 3rd-round pick, who's supposed to be a god, is atrocious, and he's our lowest-rated offensive player. And you go and you're up 17-0. You give up a punt return for a touchdown. New Orleans takes the lead. They score 20 unanswered, and then you hold them to 3 points in the second half. I mean, it's just a very gritty performance. Bucs were finally able to run the ball with Sean Tucker. What you guys know about Sean Tucker? Syracuse legend. Obviously, Bucky Irving, Tanner, who I know you were high on in the preseason. So, look, you guys want to know the Bucs' next 4 games? They get Baltimore on Monday night. They go Atlanta at home. They go to Kansas City on Monday night. Then they play San Francisco at home. So, in this gauntlet where it started with the Eagles, Atlanta, New Orleans, Baltimore, Atlanta, and then you go Chiefs, 49ers, they're already 2-1 in it. If they can just get out of this stretch, these next 4 games, if you go 2-2 in it, you're sitting at 6-4 going into sorry, my mom's calling me. Mom, I'll call you back in a second. You're going at 6-4, going into that bye. So look, I think the Bucs are in a really good spot. It's tough whenever you finish in first because you play that first place schedule. That's why, for example, they're playing Baltimore this week. Like, it's part of that first place schedule. But look, couldn't be happier. Huge win for the community. Huge win for the Bucs. There was no take I was more right on than saying that the Saints were going to regress all the way down to nothing. And look, Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler actually played pretty well. I watched
In the first half.
But when you're putting a rookie quarterback in a position where you got to throw 41 times, it's tough. But with that being said, Tanner, feed us your top 5.
My top 5 right now. So what do you want here? Do you want the overreaction emotional top 5, or do you want the
if you have the Bears over the Bucs, we're gonna have a serious issue.
Because I to be quite frank with you, I was gonna put the NFC North 1 through 4 and the Chiefs at 5, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be real here. At number 1, I'm gonna go with the Kansas City Chiefs. They were off this past week. They had a bye. They didn't play. Therefore, they don't move down there. The defending champs. They deserve that spot. At number 2, the Minnesota Vikings did not play. They were idle this week. Therefore, they do not deserve to move down. I have the Minnesota Vikings at number 2. At number 3, I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. 3 through 5 is tough. Let me tell you, it is tough. At 4, I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. And at 5, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. So I don't think I have any changes from last week. I'm pretty comfortable with that top 5.
It's a perfect list, Tanner.
The Bucs
I
are,
think so.
the Bucs are
I'm going to
right.
say a hot take before we get off. I don't think Houston can win a Super Bowl. I don't know. I just have that gut feeling. I think Houston's
I
really
agree.
good. I think that they're going to be a very good regular season team, and they have the quarterback too. But there's just something about it. And if they win the Super Bowl, then please we can come back and clip this, and I can look like.
There's
a fool.
only 3 teams that he mentioned that can win a Super Bowl, and it's 1, 3, and 5.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And right now, if you're doing, but the
4 and 5, 1, 3, and 5.
1, 4, 5.
It's the Lions, the Ravens.
We'll see. I think the Lions losing Hutchinson, we're going to see. I think that is a massive loss. I think they're going to have to.
Unreal.
I think they're going to have to make a trade to kind of fill that gap in. Look, I mean, if you go down past Baltimore, you got the Bills who are 4-2, you got the Bucs who are 4-2, the Bears are 4-2, you got the Packers at 3-3. I mean, the Falcons are 4-2. You can just keep going. I mean, there's 12 pretty legit teams in the NFL right now that could, if you saw them in a conference championship game, you'd be like, okay, there's nothing too crazy about that.
Yep, I would agree. And real quick, I'm going to move off the NFL before we end this and talk just a little bit about that AP Top 25 in college hoops that came out.
Oh, yeah.
I got to say, James.
I'm so locked in for college basketball.
Me and Johnny, we made it. James, it is a crime that the Illinois Fighting Illini did not make the top 25.
I like
Granted, they are 26.
I like it.
Someone voted for High Point in the top 25. It's like whoever votes for High Point should get to.
I can firmly and proudly say it. It's the worst preseason top 25 I've ever seen in my entire life.
There's no ranking that means less than college basketball's because the community doesn't go by it. They go by KenPom. They go by all those different statistics.
Yep.
And look, for example, Florida was picked to finish 7th or 8th in the SEC. It's just that's by media or whatever. It's not by coaches. You can see what's going to happen. I don't think Florida is going to finish 7th or 8th in the SEC. So even though the SEC is, and we're going to get into college basketball real soon, the SEC is unbelievably stacked this year. It's that and the Big 12 are the 2 deepest conferences in college basketball. But
how can you not put Illinois in your top 25? We're going to have to new episode.
James,
restart. I mean, what are we doing? They're Big Ten champs. They're Big Ten champs. They made it to the Elite 8. They returned, obviously, nobody, right? They have
it's last year. Yeah, I agree with them. I got Illinois at 27.
They have a transfer portal. I get it. But this is what Brad Underwood does. Like, oh, my God. How do you put him at 26? You put him 1 point in front of St. John's? Are you kidding me?
It doesn't matter.
I'm pretty frustrated with Purdue being 14. I wasn't expecting them to be top 5. But I think they deserve a little bit more respect. They returned 3 starters from a team that played in the national championship. I understand Edie's gone and the national media is going to think that they're going to be down. Purdue has been ranked in the top 5 for 2 straight years. And for anybody that's going to sit there and expect them to not be ranked in the top 5 blows my mind. I think Purdue is going to be in that top 5 within 2 weeks. I think they'll beat number 2 Bama on Friday night, November 15th, and they'll be right back in. So
that'll be electric. But God, I love college basketball. We're close. I mean, that starts
December 4th.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about October 12th for college.
There's 2. It's December 4th and December 14th. There's 2.
December 4th is on absolute steroids. I mean, that is a Wednesday night that I will have a mild cold, and for the sake of not wanting to get anybody else sick, I will not be leaving my apartment that day. What a day of college hoops we have in December.
You heard that, J-Town. He's out for practice that day.
I think Benedictine has a game that day, December 4th.
Oh, no.
They probably do have a game now that I think about it. I'm going to be hooping myself. So
there we go. Fun episode, guys. If you made it to the end somehow, some way, if you did, leave a like.
This long episode.
It's okay. There was no dull points. We knew this one was going to be a long one. NBA episode coming on either Thursday or Friday. And then back to the regular scheduled programming after that. So if you made it this far, like, subscribe, send us someone, and we'll see you guys next time.